Hello everyone, welcome back to Ballistic Beacon. Breaking, Russia's S-500 air defense system has reshaped the operational calculus over parts of the Middle East. This bulletin explains, in clear operational terms, what the S-500 is, how it functions, how its deployment can effectively silence the skies, and what that means for regional and extra-regional actors. The S-500 Prometheus is Moscow's most advanced strategic surface-to-air and anti-ballistic missile system to enter service. Designed to engage a broad spectrum of aerial threats, it is presented as a layered, long-range solution intended to defeat ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, aircraft, and according to Russian claims, hypersonic vehicles at extended ranges and high altitudes. At its core, the S-500 recognizes and tracks targets at very long ranges. It integrates powerful multi-band radar suites, high-altitude engagement radars, and a command network able to assign intercept tasks across a dispersed battery. The architecture is built to cooperate with other Russian air defense assets S-400, A-50AWACS, electronic warfare systems, and ground-based sensors, creating an overlapping defensive web. The system's advertised engagement envelope is the decisive factor. Russian descriptions suggest intercept ranges sufficient to threaten targets well beyond the littoral of a host nation's borders, and altitudes reaching near exoatmospheric engagements. Practically, that increases the volume of contested airspace and forces adversaries to reappraise flight profiles, stand-off ranges, and the survivability of manned platforms. How does this translate into silencing the skies? First, persistent long-range radar and early detection constrain freedom of maneuver. Aircraft and drones that previously operated with relative impunity at medium altitudes will face detection earlier and at longer standoff distances. That raises mission risk and reduces available time for evasive tactics. Second, the kinetic reach of interceptors compels planners to shift to lower NAP of the Earth routes or to operate from greater stand-off ranges using cruise missiles or sea-launched platforms. Both options impose penalties. Low-altitude flight increases vulnerability to terrain, masking and short-range air defense systems, while stand-off attacks require longer preparation, larger platforms or munitions, and thus greater logistics and diplomatic exposure. Third, the psychological and strategic impact multiplies. The knowledge that a dense, high-capability system can engage across multiple layers alters political calculations. Decision-makers are less likely to authorize high-risk air operations when the probability of loss is heightened and escalation pathways are uncertain. Technically, the S-500's effectiveness depends on several concrete elements. Radar discrimination and electronic resilience are crucial. Advanced radar suites enable target discrimination in cluttered environments, important when distinguishing between decoys, cruise missiles, and true ballistic threats. Electronic countermeasures determine how well the system resists jamming and deception. Counter-air doctrines must also account for the S-500's command and control. If the system is integrated into a broader air defense network, attacking it requires combined DARMS operations, suppression of enemy air defense seed, electronic attack, kinetic strikes on sensors and launchers, and cyber operations targeting command links. These operations, in turn, attract attention from the deploying power and risk rapid escalation. A practical scenario illustrates the effect. Consider a coalition planning precision strikes against a target inside an area defended by S-500 batteries. Early warning radars detect aircraft on approach. Interceptor launch decisions compress timelines. Coalition planners, facing reduced loiter time and increased shot-down risk, may choose to cancel or limit strikes, substitute long-range stand-off weapons, or accept higher attrition. In aggregate, air activity decreases the colloquial silencing of the skies. Another vector is the system's potential to blunt missile threats. The S-500 is marketed as an anti-ballistic missile capability. For regional actors reliant on ballistic missile salvos as coercive tools, the system reduces the operational utility of such weapons. That affects deterrence calculus. An actor whose strike credibility is reduced may be forced to seek alternative, potentially asymmetric, options. The political signaling accompanying deployment is deliberate. Stationing S-500 batteries in the region, even temporarily, is a demonstration of power projection. It broadcasts an ability to protect friendly forces and to impose costs on adversaries seeking to operate with air superiority. This is not purely tactical, it is strategic messaging intended to shore up alliances, deter intervention, and secure regional influence. Operational constraints remain, no system is invulnerable. The S-500 requires supporting logistics, secure communications, and time to establish a robust sensor and engagement picture. Its radars are high value and vulnerable to precise strikes. The system's mobility mitigates targeting, but does not eliminate risk. Effective suppression will therefore require accurate intelligence, precise timing, and combined arms cooperation. Adversaries have multiple mitigation options. Low observability and electronic warfare can reduce detection probabilities. Saturation attacks employing massed cruise missiles and decoys aim to overwhelm interceptors. Off-strike platforms and submarine-launched weapons can threaten defended assets from deniable ranges. Finally, cyber and electronic operations can degrade networks and reduce coordination between sensors and launchers. The regional implications are profound. For Israel, a neighbor with robust air capabilities and long experience in SEAD operations, the presence of S-500 systems complicates planning. Israeli doctrine emphasizes preemptive and rapid counter-air operations. A sophisticated long-range defense network increases operational risk and could necessitate new tactics or greater reliance on precision long-range weaponry. For Iran, the benefits are both defensive and reputational. Hosting advanced air defense assets strengthens homeland defense and bolsters the perception of strategic depth. It also provides a shield for critical facilities and collaborators, complicating rivals' options for direct strikes and lowering the threshold for projection by proxy. For the United States and coalition partners, the calculus is different. Freedom of maneuver for reconnaissance and strike platforms is a priority. Deploying assets into or near an S-500 controlled zone imposes additional risk, forces asset realignment, and could force reliance on unmanned platforms or off-strike packages. Politically, it also creates decision pressure whether to contest the deployment, negotiate operational understandings, or accept a new regional balance. Escalation dynamics must not be overlooked. Targeting an S-500 battery is not a low-cost option. Attack may be treated as an act of violence against the deploying state's forces or interests, generating wider confrontation. Conversely, an unchallenged S-500 presence could be used to shield proxy operations, enabling more audacious actions by the deploying power or its partners under protective cover. Intelligence and reconnaissance therefore become central. Persistent ISR signals intelligence, satellite reconnaissance, airborne early warning, and high-altitude surveillance is indispensable to map the network, identify emission signatures, and locate high-value nodes. Without accurate targeting data, SEAD or strike operations risk failure or inadvertent escalation. Another critical consideration is integration with local systems. The S-500 does not operate in isolation. Its true effectiveness is contingent on how it is fused into existing networks, local radars, coastal sensors, friendly emitter networks, and allied command nodes. Where such integration is deep, the defensive bubble becomes more resilient and complex to defeat. From a doctrinal perspective, the arrival of advanced air defense systems in any theater forces, an immediate revision of air campaign planning. Air tasking cycles lengthen, risk assessments rise, and resource allocation shifts towards survivability and suppression assets. Budgets and acquisition plans may be altered to prioritize stealth, electronic attack, and long-range strike capabilities. Legal and diplomatic dimensions follow. The host nation's consent to foreign air defense deployment carries legal implications for sovereignty and basing rights. States opposing the deployment may pursue diplomatic channels, sanctions, or coalition pressure. Conversely, states that welcome the protection may find their autonomy constrained by the operator's rules of engagement and political interests. Looking ahead, the presence of S-500 systems in the Middle East will likely catalyze an arms dynamic. Neighbors may accelerate procurement of countermeasures, invest in stealth and EW, or seek their own advanced systems. The cumulative effect is an arms race environment where defensive sophistication begets more sophisticated offensive and counteroffensive measures. Operational commanders will need to devise layered responses. Short-term measures include increased use of unmanned systems, distributed strike architecture, and deception. Medium-term solutions focus on improving electronic attack capabilities and procuring stand-off munitions. Long-term responses require doctrinal adaptation and investment in low observability airframes and resilient command networks. For analysts and policymakers, the key questions are pragmatic. How extensive is the deployment? Is it temporary or permanent? What is the level of integration with local forces? Answers to these inform whether the system is a temporary deterrent, a permanent shift in regional air dynamics, or a bargaining chip in diplomacy. Finally, the human and political costs must be acknowledged. Systems like the S-500 complicate conflict management by raising the stakes of miscalculation. Increased military capability can stabilize by deterring attacks, or destabilize by enabling riskier behavior behind a protective umbrella. Determining which occurs depends on intent, transparency, and the broader strategic context. In conclusion, the S-500 represents a significant escalation in regional air defense capability when deployed beyond Russia's borders. Its combination of long-range detection, high-altitude interception, and integration potential can materially constrain adversary air operations and, in effect, silence the skies over contested areas. That said, effectiveness is not automatic. Logistical support, integration, intelligence, and vulnerability to focused countermeasures all define its practical utility. The presence of S-500 systems alters strategic calculations and increases the complexity of both military planning and diplomacy. This bulletin will continue to monitor developments, assess operational effects, and examine reactions from regional and extra-regional powers. End of bulletin.